and actually do it.
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
I will never walk away from the people that I'm charged with fighting for. I will never walk away from the country that I love.
This is not easy, and it is not a comfortable decision, and it's one that I wrestle with on a daily basis.
How can these two men remain in the cabinet when they clearly don't accept collective responsibility? That's what we're going to be talking about, and tonight...
This answer is to smash the gangs.
We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
The Prime Minister's week is going from bad to worse to catastrophic. After just 19 months in office, Sir Keir Starmer has now overseen more small boat channel crossings than any of his predecessors, nearly 66,000 since July 2024. The government says its plans need time and promises us that eventually it will work. But how much longer can the British people wait? And... As the Epstein scandal continues to unfold, revelations involving the former Prince Andrew have led the monarchy into its biggest crisis in decades. A new poll shows public support for the monarchy has fallen to 45%, and the scandal is reigniting calls for a debate about its future. Is a constitutional crisis brewing? Plus, in an age where everyone seems to have a condition, I've somehow escaped one until now. Pathological demand avoidance, or PDA, is an extreme resistance to being told what to do. Some might say it would explain a lot about me. But is it a case of petulance and stubbornness? So, in this age of conditions, where is the line between a serious condition and a frivolous label? State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most uxoriously eudomic panel, Westminster's most distinguished cross-party couple, the former Conservative Special Advisor Claire Pearsall and GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. As always, I want to hear your views, mailmog@gbnews.com, but now it's your favourite time of the day, the news bulletin with the sophisticated Sam Francis.
Jacob, thank you, and good evening to you. This top story tonight at 8. Counter-terrorism police have confirmed they are now leading an investigation after 2 boys were stabbed at a secondary school in northwest London today. A 13-year-old has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Officers were called to Kingsbury High School in Brent just after 12:40 this afternoon. Both boys were then taken to hospital, with one treated as a priority at a major trauma centre. Police say both are still in a serious condition. The Metropolitan Police says the incident is not being treated as terrorism, despite counter-terror officers leading inquiries. Well, in the last half hour or so, the Home Secretary is one of the politicians commenting on the situation. She says that her thoughts and prayers are with 2 children who were stabbed in what she has described as a shocking attack. And we have also heard from Luke Williams, the Detective Chief Superintendent from the Metropolitan Police, who gave this statement.
Suspect, who we believe to be 13, left the scene following the stabbing. After urgent inquiries, our officers arrested him and also recovered a weapon which we believe to have been used in the stabbing. The suspect was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder and remains in custody for questioning by our officers. At this very early stage, we're keeping an open mind as to any motivation behind this attack.
Turning to other news tonight, and Sir Keir Starmer has said he will never walk away from the country he loves as pressure continues to mount over his leadership. Speaking at an event earlier in Hertfordshire, the Prime Minister told members of the public he would keep fighting for working people, just a day after his position came under intense scrutiny.
Never walk away from the mandate I was given to change this country. I will never walk away from the people that I'm charged with fighting for. And I will never walk away from the country that I love.
Well, senior Labour figures have since moved to publicly back the Prime Minister. The Mayor of Greater Manchester among them, Andy Burnham, has said that he supports Sir Keir Starmer and called for unity within the party. Mr Burnham said he had already spoken directly to the Prime Minister, urging a stronger sense of teamwork and for internal briefings to be dialed down.
Yes, he has my support. The government has my support. It is absolutely right that people give the government stability in this moment. I don't agree with you that the government hasn't done anything to support, as you say, working class Britain. I reference things that we are doing with the government support in Greater Manchester.
Earlier, Sir Keir thanked his strong and united cabinet for backing him, telling a Crunch meeting he is not prepared to walk away, as we heard from him earlier. Support has also come in from the Welsh First Minister, describing Sir Keir as an honourable man, who she says is committed to public service. The Prime Minister has also insisted Labour remains united behind Scottish Labour leader Anas Sarwar, despite him earlier calling on Sir Keir to resign. Also tonight, an Afghan asylum seeker has been found guilty of abducting and raping a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. Ahmad Malakil admitted 1 count of rape and was unanimously convicted of another count of rape, abducting and of taking indecent videos of the young girl. The court heard the 23-year-old took the child to a quiet cul-de-sac where police say she was the victim of extremely horrific sexual offences. Co-defendant 24-year-old Mohammed Kabir was found not guilty on all charges. And breaking news this evening from the United States, where the FBI has released images of a masked and armed individual as it steps up the search for the missing mother of US news anchor Savannah Guthrie. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home in Arizona more than 8 days ago. Investigators now believe she was indeed taken against her will. Federal agents say newly recovered surveillance images here on screen appear to show someone tampering with the front door camera at the time of her disappearance. The FBI says the footage had initially been inaccessible after the recording devices from that property had been removed. Well, in a public appeal, Savannah Guthrie has said her family believes her mother is still alive, urging anyone with information to come forward. Well, those are the latest headlines for now. More in an hour.
Well, welcome back to State of the Nation, and isn't it a fascinating time to be watching British politics with the Prime Minister saying that he's going to go on and on, giving clear statements, and yet Cabinet collective responsibility seeming to be not quite broken down, but rather forced. Let's see what Keir Starmer had to say today.
I will never walk away from the mandate I was given to change this country. I will never walk away from the people that I'm charged with fighting for. And I will never walk away from the country that I love.
Well, doesn't that just remind you of dear old Theresa May, who loved her country too? She said it, however, I think, just as she left office. Listen to this.
I will never walk away from the country that I love.
With enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
the country that they all love. It's beginning to sound a bit like Edward VIII, but we may come to him later. But the key thing is collective responsibility. Our system of government doesn't work unless the cabinet is united. And this was formulated by Lord Melbourne, the Prime Minister, actually Queen Victoria probably loved when she first became Queen, who said at the end of a cabinet meeting, when he hadn't been paying proper attention and before they took proper minutes, as he was leaving, he said, "Now, is it to lower the price of corn or isn't it? It's not much matter what we say, but mind we must all say the same." And this has been a constitutional principle since then. Our government depends upon it, that the cabinet must be united so that it, collectively, can be held accountable to Parliament. But is Wes Streeting really abiding by collective responsibility? Let's just listen to one or two of the things he's had to say.
The NHS, we have an initiative called GERFT, Get It Right First Time. That should be our New Year's resolution for 2026. Let's try and get it right first time.
Let's try and get it right first time, which of course implies that they're not getting it right first time and that there is a problem. And we get lots of rumours about people within the cabinet organising their leadership campaign, having conversations in quiet corners, beginning to plot. Suddenly, out of the blue, a website was set up purportedly to support the leadership campaign of Angela Rayner. This doesn't work. That if you are a Prime Minister, you have the power to hire and to fire. And we see lots of people being fired. We see the Chief of Staff going. We see the Press Secretary going. We see rumours about the Cabinet Secretary going. But nobody from the Cabinet is being removed from office. They're all staying there, even though they are quietly, not so quietly, leaking and plotting against the Prime Minister. And why does this matter? Why should we care? Well, if the government isn't united, nothing gets done. Cabinet collective responsibility is the power base of our system. What is done, what is put before Parliament, the agreements that they make become our laws, become the way in which the country is governed. And if they're sniping against each other, we are not governed. They have a majority of 180 in Parliament to back the Prime Minister and his Cabinet. And any member of the Cabinet who is not willing to support that ought to go, or ought to be fired by the Prime Minister. But the Prime Minister doesn't have the political strength, any remaining political capital, to get rid of those who are conspiring against him. So they pretend in public that they're united, whilst in private they are arguing against each other. And it has to be said, where Streeting is pushing collective responsibility to its absolute limits, putting out publicly text messages that show that he was questioning the whole basis on which the government was operating, whether there was any growth strategy. And we had the quote about whether things were being done right the first time. This undermines the ability of the government to govern, and the Prime Minister is too weak to do anything about it. Now, I know many of you are probably greater watchers of Harry Potter than I am, but there's a great quotation that we can use in this context. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. That is the reality of cabinet government. One of them, either Keir Starmer or Wes Streeting, has to go. Our system depends upon it. It's what collective responsibility means. As ever, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. But I am now joined by the doyen of constitutionalists, academic at King's College London, Professor Sir Vernon Bogdanor, and of course my panel, Westminster's foremost cross-party couple, Claire Pearsall and Nigel Nelson. Vernon, thank you for joining me. Collective responsibility matters, doesn't it, in our constitutional system?
Oh, yes, it does. And I think there is one matter on which the whole Cabinet has agreed, namely that Keir Starmer is not an effective Prime Minister. And as you said a few minutes ago, despite what they're saying to the media, they are all considering what the next step should be, and some of them are plotting the succession. And I think this is one of the features added on to the whole Mandelson scandal that has brought so many politicians into disrepute that they're saying different things to the public from what they believe in private.
And the Mandelson scandal is really very important, isn't it? It's on a different level from other scandals that you've looked at when studying British history.
Absolutely. Some people have mentioned the Profumo scandal, but it's on quite a different scale. I would compare it, I think, to the winter of discontent of public sector strikes in 1978-9, which had a very deep effect upon perceptions of the Labour Party. And people were not going to vote Labour until that stain had been removed. I remember I'm old enough to have followed the 1992 election. Indeed, I was on television during the time. And one of the reasons people gave in Basildon for not voting Labour was that it was in thrall to the unions. Now, many of the commentators had forgotten about it. They'd moved on long before, but the public hadn't, and it took Tony Blair to remove that stain. And I think this will be equally serious. Indeed, you could compare it, I think, to something that happened abroad, the Watergate scandal in America, which brought down President Nixon.
Because in our British political system, we've tended to pat ourselves on the back and say that our system hasn't been corrupt. Whereas this seems to be cash, it seems to be sex, it seems to be influence peddling from somebody who was a cabinet minister at the time. It really is at the highest level of political scandal.
Absolutely, and I suspect the public feel that. I was really quite astonished watching a programme on another channel earlier today of a junior Labour minister saying it had been a difficult time, but the drama was now over. This was a minister in the House of Lords, so with no constituents. But I wonder what your ex-constituents think about it. I wonder what they think about remaining friendly with someone who's convicted of a sex offence against a young girl, let's not mince words, against a child. And I wonder what they think of these sums swirling around, £75,000 here, $10,000 there, when the average wage in this country is just over £30,000 a year. What does what Nigel Farage calls alarm clock Britain think about this? It will have very deep and serious effects. And sadly, I think it will affect the whole political establishment, not just the Labour Party, but the Labour Party most deeply.
Well, I think this is very worrying for democracy, actually, because I think voters were very annoyed with us, the Tories, in 2024. They felt we were tainted by sleaze and that we weren't delivering what we've said. They tried something new. They tried Keir Starmer, who stood up and said he was different, it was change, and he was going to be whiter than white. He's then turned out, not personally to be sleazy, though you can argue about the suits and stuff, but to have been unconcerned about somebody who maintained a relationship with a paedophile. And this seems to me to damage the whole basis of British political life.
Absolutely. A Conservative MP, Simon Hoare, the member for North Dorset, said last Wednesday in the House of Commons that he had 3 daughters, and he thought that any association with a convicted paedophile should be a ban to becoming ambassador, to an ambassadorial appointment. But in a way, it's not as much a threat to democracy as perhaps you imply, because the public do have alternatives, whether we like them or not. The populist parties of left and right, the Greens and Reform UK, and I think they will be the beneficiaries of this. We will see it, I think, in the Gorton and Denton by-election on the 26th of February. And I wonder how much longer Keir Starmer can go on after that. Can the Labour Party fight the Scottish Parliament election when the Labour leader in Scotland says he has no confidence in the leader of the party in Westminster? I think they can't.
Well, it's only fair to say that one of Simon's daughters, Imogen, is my most distinguished and esteemed goddaughter. So I share his view that daughters and goddaughters should be protected. Nigel, what defence can you make of this breakdown in collective responsibility with Wes Streeting clearly conspiring against the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister not having the strength to sack him? Doesn't this matter?
Well, yes, it matters, but I don't think it's anything new. That if we go back through the most recent history, relations between Tony Blair and Gordon Brown were virtually impossible. I went to Downing Street parties where one faction was in one corner and one faction in the other. Boris Johnson and Theresa May. I mean, that the idea that cabinet
Boris resigned.
Eventually,
and said that this won't do, and stood to get the leadership.
Yeah, but if you're talking about collective responsibility, there obviously, you have those rows within Cabinet.
But shouldn't Streeting at this point resign?
No, I don't think he should, because what has he actually done? What he's done is he's put out a load of text messages, and the reason for that was because he was being briefed against about his relationship with Peter Mandelson.
From 10 Downing Street?
Well, certainly he's been briefed against. I don't know it was from 10 Downing Street. Wes Streeting suspects it probably was.
Come on, Claire, let's have the authoritative view from your household, because...
Well, of course he should resign. I mean, collective responsibility is there as a part of how our government works. And the minute that you say, oh, well, it doesn't matter because he was being briefed against, so this doesn't count, well, it absolutely does count.
What has he done wrong?
He has published a whole load of text messages which actually Number 10 had put out administration to all of its members to say, don't publish anything, don't do anything, you've got a police investigation going on, this is only going to muddy the waters.
But none of those things
he has gone out and done it.
But none of those things would have affected the police investigation.
If the Prime Minister tells the Cabinet and tells their own MPs not to do something...
After the fact.
No, but the police have complained.
Exactly.
And the tweets criticise government policy. So you're entitled to be critical of government policy to your friends, but you're not then entitled to put that out 6 months later and say, well, actually, I think government policy is rubbish.
And you talking about sort of Gordon Brown in one corner and Tony Blair in another corner, but they were doing that in private. They weren't doing that when they were out on the stage. No. When they were out to the public would not have known that they hated each other to the extent that they probably did.
I think they did.
They ate ice cream together in a general election
Absolutely.
campaign.
You keep up the impression, don't you? And this is what is not happening at the moment.
Teeth.
Yeah, but neither Downing Street nor Streeting are giving any impression of unity.
No.
Well, I'm still back to the bit about... you seem to think that the texts were the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm arguing that Wes Streeting has said nothing against the Prime Minister.
He's got no growth strategy. And he gets everything wrong the first time.
Absolutely critical of the Prime Minister in every single message he put out.
I think ministers have been saying that along the way, that there's an acceptance that this government has made a number of mistakes, that it'd be much better to have got it right first time rather than have to U-turn later.
So you think it's perfectly acceptable to put out there a whole load of messages saying, you know, what growth, I don't know where this policy is going, they have no way forward. Do you think that is absolutely fine?
They're historical messages.
Not from that long ago.
And the purpose of them was to show what his relationship with Peter Mandelson was like.
That's quite important. Do you think Streeting's relationship with Mandelson was so close that Streeting cannot be Prime Minister?
No. And I think that one of the things the text messages show is the kind of things they were talking about. They didn't have that kind of close relationship. They had a relationship.
They ended their text messages with X's.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I think that gives
you find this odd, don't you?
I do find it incredibly odd. You only do that to your nearest and dearest.
Do you end text messages with X's to men who aren't members of your family?
I have a close friend who we always end our text messages with an X, yes, who's a male.
Well, I don't end with an X to anybody.
No, nor do I. No. Well, if I was a member of the Conservative Party or Reform UK, I would hope that, ideally, Starmer remains, but if not, that Wes Streeting succeeds him, because he, too, was a close friend of someone who knew and kept on good terms with a convicted paedophile. The Labour Party has to choose someone who's totally distant from all this to try and eradicate the stain.
I completely agree with that. I think the stain is so deep and great and disgusting. Anyway, coming up in just a moment.
The serious answer is to smash the gangs. We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
The Prime Minister's week is going from bad to worse to catastrophic. Sir Keir Starmer has now overseen more small boat channel crossings than any of his predecessors. The government says its plans need time. How much longer can the British people be kept waiting?
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Venice is being invaded by cannibalistic jellyfish with vanishing bottoms, and they're wreaking havoc across the city's fragile lagoon ecosystem. Well, it is indeed Tom's favourite time of the day. Tom Harwood, over to you.
Not many people know this, but the B in GB News actually stands for biology. Marine biology, that is. So welcome to Marine Biology Corner. We're going to have a look at what is a remarkable jellyfish. Let me just set the scene with some water here. And this is known as the warty comb jelly. Some people call it the sea walnut, because this particular jellyfish has basically a pretty stationary lifestyle. It looks like it's almost not moving, but there are some remarkable things about this jellyfish. Number one, it is a hermaphrodite. So let's just sort of, yes, it's a hermaphrodite. It can reproduce by itself and choose whether to use large or small gametes in order to do so. I'll let your imaginations run wild on that. It's also functionally immortal. This jellyfish is one of those sorts of jellyfish that can actually revert back to an early life stage. It can sort of reverse its own puberty and then go through those life cycles again and again and again. Functionally immortal unless something eats it. But perhaps the most concerning thing about this particular jellyfish is it's got a transient anus. Now, what does that mean? That means that when this jellyfish needs to excrete, an anus appears. But then once the excretion is over, the anus just completely disappears again.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, we've been talking about Starmer and collective responsibility and streeting, and the Mail Moggs have come zooming in, and George says, I think social media and the 24-hour news cycle have a lot to answer for. Cabinet collective responsibility doesn't stand a chance, and every disagreement is being briefed to journalists in real time. And Lucy says, a lot of this comes down to the fact that the leadership candidates only seem interested in power for power's sake, just like the PM. What happened to conviction and the courage to stand by principles, even when it costs votes? Well, it gets people like me losing their seats. Anyway, thank you very much for those, and keep on sending them in. The Prime Minister's week is going from bad to worse to catastrophic. Today, after just 19 months in office, we learn that more migrants have crossed the Channel in small boats under Sir Keir Starmer than under any previous Prime Minister. Since July 2024, almost 66,000 people have arrived on small boats, an average of nearly 800 a week. The news comes despite the Prime Minister promising to smash the gangs and signing a bogus returns deal with the French. Despite the bad news, the government insists its plan will take time to work. How much more time can we give them? Well, my panel is here. Nigel, this is an absolute failure, either of propaganda that the government overpromised in the election campaign, or of implementation.
Well, first of all, they are smashing the gangs, and we'd have an awful lot more people here if they hadn't done that. So it goes on all day. I mean, the National Crime Agency, I get press releases from them on almost a daily basis where they've actually arrested gang members or disrupted an operation. 60 inflatables were found in Bulgaria that would have gone to the Channel. They got hold of those. That's 2,000 migrants who didn't make it. So those things are happening, but they're not happening fast enough or comprehensively enough.
So when Starmer said smashing the gangs would solve the problem, was he being naive? Or was he just being dishonest?
I think that it will take a long time to actually do that, because the number of gangs and the number of people who are crossing the Channel. So that's the problem he's facing. But then you've got other things coming in. So you've got Shabana Mahmood bringing in things that discourage people from coming here, extending the period that people can claim claim benefits from 5 years to 20 years, 30 years for somebody who crosses the Channel and gets refugee status here. So things are happening, but those are long-term propositions.
Well, that all sounds marvellous, but the Tories simply said that if you came here illegally, you could never become a British citizen.
Well, I mean, you could argue that, but what do you then do with somebody who is then stuck in limbo, who can't go back to their own country because they're a genuine refugee?
Send them to Rwanda, which was a wonderful scheme. But Claire, let me bring you in.
And expensive.
I was 66,000 people coming in. He's got the record. He's only been Prime Minister for 18, 19 months. Rishi Sunak did it for longer, got fewer people coming in, likewise Boris. It's an absolute failure of their policy.
Well, of course it is, but you can stand up there and say you're going to smash the gangs in your monotone drawl all you like if you're not going to actually make a difference in it. And Nigel going on about, well, that's 2,000 because they took 60 inflatables off the market. Oh, right, OK, so that's 2,000. And how many more are going to come? Because it isn't going to make a difference. You have a one-in, one-out scheme, which I think we all knew was doomed to fail right from the beginning. Paying the French more money isn't going to work.
That hasn't failed. Yeah, that's a starting point, isn't it?
A starting point. So let's see how many more have come in. So we've sent over, however many was it, 191 and taken in
Bernie just starting. Isn't the principle that somebody can actually claim asylum not on British soil, because that's effectively what the one-in, one-out scheme means, a start in the right direction? We're actually changing the asylum system, which will stop people crossing the Channel.
Well, it hasn't. That's the point.
Well,
It's not having a deterrent effect. People are still going to come across. You can't say, oh, well, we'll have to wait and see and it's going to take time. Well, how much more time? In nearly 2 years, you've had this many people coming across. You're making absolutely no roads into stopping them. You say that you're going to shut down hotels, but what you're doing is putting more and more people into smaller communities in disused army barracks. Well, that isn't going down well either, and you're going to run out of those spaces. So what's going to happen next? If you're never going to remove
they've got to go somewhere, haven't they? They've got to go somewhere. So if you don't want them in hotels...
And how are they clearing the backlog? Because they're
housing.
absolutely not doing that either. If you want to clear the backlog, you need to be able to have returns agreements with other countries, like you have to look at Afghanistan, you have to look at Iran, Iraq, you have to look at Eritrea.
You can't magic those things out of thin air.
But in 2 years,
we have no diplomatic relations with Afghanistan, for instance.
And in 2 years, they have made absolutely no difference. If France and Germany can make those conversations happen, then why can't the UK government?
Because they take time. I mean, we're trying...
But they've had 2 years and they seemingly are not making any difference
returns
whatsoever.
Agreements with other countries. It's beginning to happen. But the idea this is going to happen overnight, or could happen in the 18 months that Labour have been in, frankly, I mean, you know from your days at the Home Office, it's not a problem that can instantly be solved.
But I also haven't stood up there as a Prime Minister candidate in waiting saying my party will smash the gangs and as soon as we come into office we're going to make a difference, which is what he said. The 2024 election was run along those lines. If you're going to make those kind of vast promises to the public, then you need to have a way of actually making that happen.
Your Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, had an absolute stop the boats. I mean, that didn't happen either.
Because he was then taken out of power, so anything that he would have put forward isn't going to happen, because as soon as the Labour Party became the government, they stopped an awful lot of the Conservative plans. In the main, they just ripped up the paper and said, we're not doing it.
They were far too expensive. Rwanda would have cost £10 billion.
How much
they spent $700 million on nothing. What, 4 people went there voluntarily?
But you don't know if it would have had that deterrent effect. It was starting to look like it was going to, because people were talking about it. People on all of the social media channels were saying, actually, this is not a good bet now going to the United Kingdom, because you may well get sent to Rwanda. You don't have that now, because people are saying, oh, it's all right, England's a bit of a free-for-all.
And this is absolutely right, isn't it, that people had already started going to the Republic of Ireland rather than to Northern Ireland because they thought they might end up in Rwanda. And even people in the Labour Party are now regretting that Rwanda wasn't at least used experimentally, and other European countries...
Well, that's the first I've heard about from the Labour Party.
Because other European countries are now beginning to try and find ways of getting illegal migrants into third countries.
Absolutely, but for processing.
But this scheme was within days of operating, if only Labour had used it when they'd come into power. And they got rid of it because of this lie about smash the gangs. And doesn't this leave Starmer completely exposed? Either in the election campaign he was dishonest, or since the election campaign he's been incompetent. There isn't a middle way.
Well, the idea of smash the gangs didn't actually have a time limit on it, unlike Rishi Sunak, who was saying stop the boats, which was a ridiculous thing to say. At the moment, the National Crime Agency, helped by MI5, are actually making inroads against the gangs. I agree with you, not enough, and more people are coming over. But it will take time to go and do that.
Don't we have to confess some fault ourselves that actually our Rwanda plan wasn't going to work without amending the Human Rights Act?
Of course, I think we have to take responsibility for some of those failings. It was incredibly expensive. There were so many barriers, legal barriers to overcome. And I think that was because it was rushed forward. Unfortunately, this was a sort of Boris Johnson plan that he put out on the hoof almost without having the backup of the legal system. Now, if you'd done it the other way around and actually looked to change the Human Rights Act before you started to announce it, then I think we could have got somewhere. But unfortunately, we didn't have time.
All right, well, thank you very much to my panel. Coming up in just a moment. As the Epstein scandal continues to unfold, revelations involving the former Prince Andrew have led the monarchy into its biggest crisis in decades. A new poll shows public support for the monarchy has fallen to 45%. There's a constitutional crisis brewing.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello. It's been very wet across western areas of Europe as well as the UK. There is some dry weather on the way for this weekend. Before then, though, a few showers affecting the Canary Islands through Wednesday. Some very heavy rain still moving into parts of northern Portugal in particular. Much of Spain and France also seeing that wet weather. As we look further east, it's still unsettled through the Mediterranean, but some sunny spells here and there. But as I said, as we look towards the weekend, high pressure moves in to bring more of us some sunshine across Europe.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello again, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. The cloudy and rather the wet theme is going to stick with us as we go through the rest of today, overnight and into tomorrow. There's an area of low pressure to the west of us, and this is bringing some blustery winds towards the southwest, also the northeast. And then we have a couple of fronts moving their way in, a big band of quite persistent rain running from eastern England up through northern England across much of Scotland. And here we are seeing some hill snow over parts of Scotland as well through the night. Elsewhere, there'll be outbreaks of rain coming in from the southwest across England, Wales and also Northern Ireland. Because of the cloud, because of the rain, well, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night. Mid-single figures across much of the north and some places towards the south, staying in double digits. So a fairly mild start to the day tomorrow. Across southern parts, there will be some rain around, but it'll be outbreaks of rain, so some drier weather, some wet weather at times. The further north we go, the more persistent the rain's going to be. Quite a damp start to the day. It's not especially heavy, but it is just going to be very wet, and worth bearing in mind that the rainfall totals could be building up, particularly across some parts of eastern Scotland and also southwest Scotland. Could see some high totals, could be a bit of flooding, also some travel disruption as we go through tomorrow. Staying wet then through the day across the northern half of the UK. Further south, something a bit drier, maybe even some bright or sunny spells developing across the south and southwest. And here temperatures similar to today with highs of around 13, possibly 14 Celsius, but if anything, feeling slightly nicer because of the sunshine that's breaking through. As we go into Thursday, again, more cloud on offer. There will be rain around. We have a band of rain coming in from the west and then outbreaks of rain coming in from the east. Some glimmers of sunshine may be dotted around away from the wet weather, but on the whole, it's going to stay pretty grey. Another grey and wet day on Friday before Saturday, Valentine's Day, does look set to bring a sunnier treat.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As the Epstein scandal continues to expose new information, the effect of the revelations surrounding Prince Andrew has left the monarchy facing its biggest crisis since the abdication. This is what happened when the King visited Lancashire recently.
The Epstein investigation. Thank you so much for coming.
A new poll commissioned by the campaign group Republic, which wants to get rid of the monarchy, shows public backing for the monarchy has fallen to 45%, down from 48% in the past 4 months. Buckingham Palace says the King has expressed profound concern over the former Prince Andrew's conduct and will cooperate with the police if asked. The scandal is so serious that it has reignited calls for a debate about the future of the monarchy. Will the royal family survive this embarrassment? Well, I'm very pleased to be joined now by the contributing editor at Novara Media, Michael Walker. Michael, thank you for coming in and welcome back to the programme. Slightly, what more could the King do? That Edward IV could drown his annoying brother in a butt of Malmsey, but this isn't an option open to the King.
Well, I think there's a danger of saying that in overlooking the past 15 years, right? We're all being very harsh, fairly, about Keir Starmer because now that this is a big political mess, everyone's lining up to say what a terrible person Peter Mandelson was. But before this was the front page of every newspaper, they were appointing him to a position of power. And King Charles, you know, Prince Andrew has been friends with Epstein for a very long time. Right? He invited Epstein to Buckingham Palace in 2010 after Epstein had been convicted of sexual abuse of children. Right? So the idea that this was a secret is untenable. So Prince Charles, in the same way that Keir Starmer has some culpability here to share.
Okay, but doesn't the comparison fall down? Because Keir Starmer appointed Mandelson even as these revelations were coming out more and more, whereas as every revelation has come out, the King has taken things away and the Queen before him.
Well, I suppose there's a difference between is it when revelations come out that the action is taken or is it when the media response becomes so loud that he has no response?
Well, I think the...
Because the trigger really was the interview with Emily Maitland,
that's right.
The original one. And no new information arose in that interview. What that was a very bad performance from Prince Andrew, which reminded everyone what people already knew.
Because the interview seemed to make it look as if Prince Andrew wasn't telling the truth. And prior to that interview, you had allegations and a denial, and we have a strong principle of innocence until proved guilty. With that interview, it looked as if
And you don't think they'd had those conversations in private beforehand?
If Prince Andrew was telling both the late Queen and his brother that he didn't do this, and there was no criminal trial, there'd be no proof up until that point. The interview is really important because...
what there had been proof of is that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted child sex offender and that Prince Andrew had maintained a relationship with him.
But there seemed to be at that point...
That was established.
Yeah, that's right. But people knew of one meeting after that. It turns out to be much more, and it turns out that former Prince Andrew has told almost as many lies as Peter Mandelson.
So there's an email from 2010 where Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew are exchanging emails. He's just visited London, Epstein. He says, I need somewhere private to meet. And Prince Andrew says, oh, Buckingham Palace. Come any time. You can come any time from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Now, that doesn't sound to me like an individual who is trying to hide his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein from his family, right? Because he's inviting them to the family home.
Well, but you're making Buckingham Palace sound like an ordinary person's home. It's not. It's got lots of different flats. It's an enormous building. There's no way...
Do you think that if this was a secret relationship, they would not have met somewhere else? He was open about that relationship until he was shocked that people minded about it.
But saying he was open about it doesn't mean that the King or the late Queen would have known about it, because they wouldn't have been keeping tabs on a grown man's private friendships. They just wouldn't.
Well, I mean, I think they should have had an idea of the man's judgment by then, and their whole task is to protect the monarchy. Right? So that should be their job. They should be looking out for these kind of things.
I think you're being completely unrealistic. There's no reason why somebody knows who his brother is meeting in private.
Well, it depends who your brother is. So if their job is to protect the integrity of the monarchy, right? And they knew that he was friends with Epstein because Epstein had come to many sort of family events.
But if it were in the court...
And then they should have known that Epstein was convicted of child sex offences.
Hold on, family events, but hadn't been introduced to the King or indeed to the late Queen.
What, personally?
Personally. So they didn't know him. They hadn't been introduced to him. And it seems unlikely that they would have been keeping tabs on his private visits. It wasn't in the court circular. It wasn't an event. So they wouldn't therefore have seen it in a formal way. And it's very unlikely.
I think the argument that it's OK because their house was so large. This is a taxpayer-funded home, by the way. Well, and I think they should open a broad... The Buckingham Palace is taxpayer-funded.
It comes from the Crown Estates. The Crown Estates, the King's property, which he gives most of the revenue to the government for.
Yeah, and then we also subsidise it. Who's paying to... who's paying to do up Buckingham Palace?
It comes from the Crown Estates.
Public money.
It comes from the Crown Estates. The Crown Estates...
But the Crown Estates are publicly owned.
No, they're the King's...
So these are publicly owned buildings.
They're the King's patrimony, where the sovereign, since the reign of George III, gives the income to the state. And then...
So if we abolish the monarchy, who would that building belong to?
Almost certainly
to all of us?
No, almost certainly belong to the King in the same way
You
as...
can do that by an Act of Parliament. I think the issue here is because in the intro it was sort of about... It wasn't just about Charles, right? It was about the principle of the monarchy in general.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to the monarchy, my issue with it has always been that I think that when you confer status and prestige on people, it should be based on what they've done, not their bloodline.
All right.
Now,
I'm going to have that last line.
A pragmatic argument, which is they might be idiots.
That's always a risk, and maybe the case in certain instances related to York. Anyway, if anyone's got some spare Malmsey going, I think it might be useful for the King. In a moment, in an age where everyone seems to have a condition, I've somehow escaped one until now. Pathological demand avoidance, or PDA, is an extreme resistance to being told what to do. If any of my family are listening, I suffer from this badly. In an age of conditions, where is the line between something serious and a frivolous label?
Edward, to have and to hold unto him for his life.
This is the right trusty and well-beloved counsellor, Lord Redwood of Wokingham.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In an age where having conditions, however seemingly meaningless, has become the ultimate trend, I have now discovered that I've got one just now, because pathological demand avoidance, or PDA, is a condition where the afflicted hates doing what he's told. Many will tell you, particularly my loyal producers, that I exemplify this trait perfectly. But in an age where serious conditions equated with those which some would argue is a case of extreme stubbornness, should we be taking things this seriously? Well, my eudaimonic panel is still with me, and I thought we might like to know that eudaimonic means pertaining or conducive to happiness, which, as they're married, I hope is the case, even though they argue like cats and dogs. Nigel Nelson and Claire Pearsall. Nigel, do you suffer from PDA? Because I think we've got a picture we can show that...
I think I do.
Guilty.
I think the picture is probably evidence, yes, that our big problem... That is my breakfast this morning. First of my breakfast has been on national television. And when we were talking about this item coming up tonight, that Claire pointed out I hadn't put my breakfast things in the dishwasher.
And that's because you're being told to?
Well, that's because partly because I've been told to, but I think actually what I really suffer from is something different called Dwiddy syndrome, which is damn well do-it-yourself, because Claire always tells me that whenever I load the dishwasher, it's completely wrong.
Oh, I see. So Nigel doesn't have PDA, it's just your fault.
It's my fault,
for criticising.
But I just find it so frustrating that he's been told numerous times, just put it in the dishwasher. Why then go all to the trouble of going all the way over to the dishwasher, putting it on the side above the dishwasher when it's just right there? You can see it. It's a man trait. I'm sorry, gentlemen, but I do believe that this is more in men.
But do you then say that he's done it incorrectly and it needs to be done better?
Yes, because he has.
There's the admission.
So there's the admission. And we are becoming more and more eudaimonic as the conversation goes on.
I mean, I can't understand. Sometimes the dishwasher just looks like a baboon has had free reign at putting things in.
But all you do is you put dishes in a dishwasher and saucepans
you have
and...
to do it in the correct
But
way.
why do you? I mean, once you've got it in the dishwasher and they don't fly all over the place, they'll be fine.
There's a way of doing it to ensure that everything fits in and everything gets clean. Because I'm not going to run it many, many times with 5 items in it when I can actually shove it
my dishwashing organisation, it does fit in. It just may look a bit higgledy-piggledy when it's in there.
Well, trust me, I have photos. We're
going to have more evidence. We're going to do a whole programme on it. But I do want to come on to the issue of whether we're getting syndromes for everything, and that actually just normal human behaviour is now being classified, which gives people in a funny sort of way an excuse for failure because they've got a syndrome, therefore they're not expected to be any good at anything.
That's right. I think it takes away the responsibility for your actions from people because they can suddenly say, it isn't my fault, I've got whatever sort of disease, disorder, whatever it is you like. So I think it does take that responsibility away from the person because a lot of the time, something like PDA, it is extreme stubbornness. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means that you have to learn how to manage that, and other people shouldn't have to tread on eggshells around it either.
But it can be life-threatening. I mean, in fairness, the people who've actually identified this, they mention a case of somebody refused to go to hospital because they'd been told to. As a result, they died. So there obviously there are serious implications from it.
But the problem is if everything has a syndrome, then the serious ones get lost in this morass of all of us saying we've got something.
Yes, I think there probably are too many syndromes around at the moment, yeah.
Yes. Well, there we go. Well, now we come on to my favourite story of the day. I'm also going to tell you about my own PDA in a moment. But our right trusty and well-beloved councillor, look at this.
I, John Lord Redwood, do swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Now, isn't it wonderful to see that the esteemed friend of State of the Nation, Sir John Redwood, was today elevated to the House of Lords, becoming henceforth Baron Redwood of Wokingham. I think we all congratulate him thoroughly. It is hard to think of somebody more deserving of his peerage. What a contribution he's made to public life, what fun he is to have on this programme, how he understands things and explains them to us, and what a service he did to Lady Thatcher. Now, my PDA is that they've pinched a minute from in this programme to give you a boring preview of something, which I absolutely loathe, so I run up as late as possible before handing over to the one and only Patrick. It's not you, Patrick, it's the dreadful promo which all my viewers hate, and that's my PDA for the evening.
So sounded a lot like you were talking to me there, Jacob, but anyway, we do actually get on. Right, loads on, and I have to put a serious face on because very serious story. There is an Afghan small boat migrant has been found guilty of abducting and raping a 12-year-old girl. We're going to talk about that. Also, counter-terrorism police are assessing an incident, a double stabbing, actually, at a school in London. So, some breaking news for you this evening as well.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. The cloudy and rather the wet theme is going to stick with us as we go through the rest of today, overnight and into tomorrow. There's an area of low pressure to the west of us, and this is bringing some blustery winds towards the southwest, also the northeast. And then we have a couple of fronts moving their way in, a big band of quite persistent rain running from eastern England up through northern England across much of Scotland. And here we are seeing some hill snow over parts of Scotland as well through the night. Elsewhere, there'll be outbreaks of rain coming in from the southwest across England, Wales and also Northern Ireland. Because of the cloud, because of the rain, well, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night. Mid-single figures across much of the north and some places towards the south, staying in double digits. So a fairly mild start to the day tomorrow. Across southern parts, there will be some rain around, but it'll be outbreaks of rain, so some drier weather, some wet weather at times. The further north we go, the more persistent the rain's going to be. Quite a damp start to the day. It's not especially heavy, but it is just going to be very wet, and worth bearing in mind that the rainfall totals could be building up, particularly across some parts of eastern Scotland and also southwest Scotland. Could see some high totals, could be a bit of flooding, also some travel disruption as we go through tomorrow. Staying wet then through the day across the northern half of the UK. Further south, something a bit drier, maybe even some bright or sunny spells developing across the south and southwest. And here temperatures similar to today with highs of around 13, possibly 14 Celsius, but if anything, feeling slightly nicer because of the sunshine that's breaking through. As we go into Thursday, again, more cloud on offer. There will be rain around. We have a band of rain coming in from the west and then outbreaks of rain coming in from the east. Some glimmers of sunshine may be dotted around away from the wet weather, but on the whole, it's going to stay pretty grey. Another grey and wet day on Friday before Saturday, Valentine's Day, does look set to bring a sunnier treat.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225.